Joining us now on the Third and 30 podcast, we are happy to welcome head coach of the University of Denver women's basketball team, Coach Doshia Woods. Coach Woods, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure in your busy schedule, take some time out to talk with us for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me in. Thank you for saying my name correctly.
You're welcome. I tried to do my research. I mean, my name is Praveen Manchbragada, so I have to make sure I treat other people with the same respect. If I expect people to at least try and say my name right,
Yeah.
So absolutely. Coach Woods, want to dive right in, and like I said, I did my research, but our listeners are probably wondering more about you and your background. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your journey in life and what led you to this role as head basketball coach at the University of Denver.
Gosh, I feel like it's such a loaded question when you say like your journey in life. If you say like basketball journey or your professional journey, but life journey, I'm one of those people that I think, the phrase "it takes a village." That's literally how I feel like my life has been. I was born and raised in Topeka, Kansas, East Topeka, because I'm very proud to have to separate that. So normally they say, oh, there's not a lot of good that comes from that side of town. So I like to say that I am one of the success stories. And that's why I like to specify for that. It really took a village. I lived with my mom, single mom. There was three of us. I have a brother and a sister. And then I was really bad, to be honest with you, growing up. I was like the bully, elementary school, and just for no reason other than I could, probably because I was the shortest. I'm like 5'3" on a good day. And so then about seventh grade, I remember it was probably like my worst year in terms of behavioral problems. And at the end, they called my mom in and they said, hey, we want to put her in this behavior disorder class. She has all these issues, but we can't because her grades are too good. And I was like, I'm smart. You guys just bore me. So the next year, everyone got smart. They told me if I got in trouble, I couldn't play sports. And so it was like night and day. I got a 4.0 and that like flipped the switch. So, from that moment on, NCAA used to have a program called NYSP, National Youth Sports Program, which was for inner city kids. And I was a participant for a couple of years. And there I had a chance to be a part of Washburn University Lady Blues Division II back in Topeka. And that really is where my love of basketball started. I was able to be the ball girl for the program, be everywhere, honestly, with the program, pregame, shoot around. It didn't matter. I was there in the locker room. Now that I've coached my entire adult life, I laugh thinking how much they just let me run around. Like I was part of the team. I mean, I'm supposed to film the game. I remember Coach Dick at the time was like, you film the games, games going on at this end, but my camera's at this end. So I was a mess. But it really just, being around them gave me a chance to see. I never knew you could play basketball in college, and they really motivated me to kind of stay out of trouble. As I mentioned earlier, I was one that I had to stay out of trouble. I needed to keep myself busy. So in high school, I was pretty active. I played 4 sports. Basketball was always my love, and went to junior college, and then went to Western Illinois from there. But I really say it took a village. And then after Western, I was a GA for about a month, and coach said, do you want the job? And I said, yes. So I've been coaching. I was an assistant for about 19 years before getting here to DU. And I think what I enjoyed now about the 19 years is just the different types of people I had a chance to work for, the different types of players that impacted me, that helped me honestly make that transition to becoming a head coach. You can't ever prepare for everything, but it was nice to just have enough experiences to be able to make the transition a little easier. And I don't know if you're supposed to say this, but I honestly enjoyed getting the position in COVID. I liked that there was the restrictions that I didn't know what I didn't know. Last week, I was on a road recruiting and to talk to a couple other coaches that got their positions in the first time in a pandemic, and they're trying to figure that part out. I'm like, I could just focus on the team. So it took me some time to get here. I know 19 years seemed like a long time. And I think a couple years before getting the position here, I think I hit a wall in the sense of I was ready to give up on myself. And I started to change how I thought about it. I started to figure out what I need to do. All that advice, you give your team, being an assistant, they want to come in and coach, how come I'm not playing, or how come I'm not doing this? And you got to do the extra work, and you got to do this. And one thing I always say is, what are you doing to separate yourself? And I started to think about that for myself. I tried for a few other positions and didn't get them. And I was like, what am I doing to separate myself? So I got my master's at 41. from Tulane. Finished. I spent 10 years there as an assistant. And I didn't realize it was perks of the job, right? That they pay for your tuition. So I started to do that to make sure whatever boxes people were going to check, I could check them myself. Sorry, that was like a long-winded answer to one question, but hopefully I answered enough of it in there.
No, that was great. And I mean, I love how you took us through the entire thing. I mean, that's
Really sorry.
that's what we're here for. You didn't cut any corners, and that's the real coach's way of doing it. So I love it. And now that you mentioned your experience at Tulane, and now, and we're for our listeners here, and we talked about this off air, that we're recording this on actually the 1-year anniversary that you got hired at the University of Denver, which is I think really cool. Now, so you've been there for a year, but leading up to that, and even at your years at Tulane, when did you kind of realize you wanted to become a head coach? And when you got that position, 1 year ago, what were those emotions like? And how did that feel?
I was one that I always knew I wanted to be a head coach. It wasn't one that happened later in my career. I just always have been told, I think since the first grade, that I just have this like natural ability to lead. As I say, I don't know if it's ever really natural, but it always came easy for me. And so by the time I graduated my senior year at Western, Coach knew then I wanted to coach. So she created a position for me. And I feel like from that first year, I'd always prepared for this moment. So, but spending 10 years at Tulane really gave me a chance to work for, in my mind, a legend. Coach Stockton is going on year 28 at Tulane. And so I really respect how she was able to build her program and really, hit the 3 pillars in terms of athletic success, academic success. And then the one that people don't like to talk about a lot, which we talk about here at DU, is just the social part. Go out. Just today, I sent our team, there's a concert coming up on September 4th, and I know it's one of the artists that they like, and it's like a whole kind of the weekend series. And I was like, hey, if you guys want to go. So I think that part is just as important. So spending 10 years with her really gave me a chance to learn a lot of different aspects about what it means to be a head coach, how you can lead where it feels authentic and comfortable for you. I think that's what some of us get caught up, and we listen to podcasts, read all these books, and I have to act like coach such and such or coach such and such. And to really watch her just coach within herself really inspired me. And so it made this transition a little easier. You talk about the emotions. To be honest with you, a year ago, I remember just the whole weekend they offered the job and you're waiting for that like background check to come back. And I know I didn't do anything wrong, but it's like, what are you going to find that I don't know? So I'm waiting.
So true.
Yeah, it's like you haven't done anything, like at most maybe a speeding ticket, right? And so I'm just waiting, like no. So finally get the email, and to be honest with you, it was emotional. We talked about it today as a team. We had practice this morning, and they were asking me like, how do you feel about it? And I said, I honestly cried. I think to spend that long just preparing for something. Again, I was a person who was raised by a single mom. We were on welfare, we were on Section 8. I lived with a lot of different families once I made it to high school. So when I say it was a village, it was like this whole kind of community of people for me to get to that moment. So I remember being offered the job and then thinking like, I have so many people to thank. My mom passed in 2013. So it was like all these emotions, but to think about how hard everyone helped me to get to that moment, it was like a thank you to them. And that's how I live every day. I don't like to take shortcuts or take days off. I take days off, but when it's time to work, I work just because I have a lot of people that help me get to this point.
Coach, that is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's always one thing to see someone in a position and to see them doing what they do, to learn their journey and learn what went into that and learn what their mindset was when they were given the opportunity. Because we talk here, when opportunity presents itself, it's too late to prepare. So you have to be as ready as you can be, and you've really illustrated that for us today. I know that's such a benefit to our listeners, and to know we can come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. We can go through anything. And it's the relationships along the way. I preach relationships at work. I preach relationships in the sports, and you're doing that same thing, which leads us right into one of the things that's really important to us on the show is culture. And you really focus on culture, and you speak about it regularly. I've seen it on social media. I had the privilege of hearing you speak at the Power of Positive Summit. That was a virtual event put on by John Gordon. I had the opportunity to listen to your presentation there, which is obviously what led to us eventually getting connected via social media to get you on the show here. And one of the things that I really want to learn about is from your perspective as a new coach, first-time head coach at a new school, and how did you go about establishing the culture at DU as far as the basketball team goes? And then can you also elaborate on the meaning of your hashtag your craft?
Absolutely. It's funny, again, as an assistant, I spent a lot of time attending different conferences, whether it's like virtually or in person, and all of these roundtables. You want to make this jump from assistant to head coach. And so you begin to build your own portfolio. And so I remember interviewing for this position, again, with the pandemic, it just started. So it was all done via Zoom, the entire process. The first time I was on campus, I already had the job. It was like I accepted a job, and then I was like, well, let me just go see what I'm getting myself into, because it was, we just did it all virtually. But I remember just doing the whole process, and I had my portfolio, I had all my notes, and I'm thinking, the one interview I said, I'm going to, build this culture, and we're going to give our best effort in the classroom, on the court. And that was kind of my theme through the whole process, was best effort. And regardless of what it was going to be, right? Well, then I get the position, and I don't know, I'm like looking at the faces. I don't know any of the team. In women's basketball, you get 15 full ride scholarships, and all 15 were used. So it wasn't like I had a chance to bring in someone that knew me, or I recruited. So here I am inheriting this whole team that I didn't know. So on the Zoom, I'm just looking at them. And so I kind of told them, this is what I thought, but what do you guys think? And so what do you guys think? Because if you don't buy into it, or if it's not something you believe in, it's going to be hard for me to kind of implement and say, I was passionate about it, right? The whole interview process, and everybody bought into it, but it was just something about their faces. So we probably spent the next two to three Zooms just kind of throwing around different ideas. Everyone had to speak. We just kind of did, popcorn style, and said, what do you guys want people to think of when they see a DU women's basketball player? If they have you in class, if they watch us, if they see you in a community. And so because of that conversation, it was, we narrowed it down to a few words. And so your craft is an acronym for the 5 words that kind of stood out. C is communication, R is respect, A is accountability, F is family, and T is trust. And that's kind of, and then every day we talk about your craft and are you doing those things? And it really applies to on the court as well, right? Communication, as I tell them every day, solves lots of problems, personal life and on a basketball court. If you talk about it, then we can figure out what we're going to do next. And what I liked about that, and my staff and I, we found it made it easier than throughout the year. These are your words, not ours. I wanted best effort anyway. Y'all came up with your craft. So here we are. And it was just a great way where they felt like they were a part of it. And I think establishing a culture was important for me to give them a voice early on. Anybody that will, watch our practices or watch our games, I'm very adamant about giving our players a voice. Again, not everything, they're not running the program, but if it's something that's not that important, or sometimes it's really important to me that, okay, I can take their opinion and move on, I try to do that. I'll give you a quick example. When I got to Tulane, the players didn't have to tuck their shirts in, right? And so I'm like, wait, you want to tuck your shirts in? And Coach Stockton at the time was like, it's the ref's job. I don't give that my energy, just because how many times you stop practice and all of that. And I was like, okay. So when I got here, I don't care if you tuck your shirt in. Can you get a stop? Can you rebound? Can you run the floor? Is it gonna? And again, that's the ref's job. So even something as simple as that. Well, then our strength and conditioning coach comes in and he's like, hey, you tuck your shirt in. So they all look at me like, no, Coach Woods said we don't. It's like new. And I'm like, something that wasn't a big deal to me, but it made a huge impact on them, which has evolved to now. Honestly, you come to our practices and you might see the nose rings in, the earrings in. It's your body. If you get fouled, I'm not stopping the drill. I'm not. So you want to leave it in? I'm tired of all the earrings in my pockets. So if you get fouled, I'm not stopping the drill for your nose or your earrings.
Yes, Coach.
And it made a difference for them. So
have you had any earrings or nose rings fall out during practice? Like literally just ripped out?
We have it. And there's a couple, there's one that was like, she'll wear a necklace And I'm like, you sure? And I would say, you sure you want to wear all that? Because if it breaks, I'm not stopping the drill. I'm really not. We're just going to keep it. Now, obviously, if we're bleeding or something, we're going to stop it. But
Yeah.
I'm not. And so, and they're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay. Because, you know, as assistants or just coaches, they're like, oh, coach, I forgot. You got to hold all this stuff. And then you feel like, okay, if you lose it or not lose it, they want to put it on you. So I figure you know, again, if it's going to prevent them from running the floor or getting a stop defensively or listening, then we'll address it. If not, then okay. They just don't give it energy. And something that I didn't give energy, that was super important to them. And, you know, we still have had, honestly, some of our best practices in the spring and in the summer with a simple just gesture like that. It's
That's
very
awesome.
unorthodox how I lead. Now I think about it. I had one of my teammates come to practice. I had one of my teammates come to practice last week, and she was like, is this, I was like, yeah. I said, it's just one of those, I like to call it a collaboration. If there's a time that I can get their opinion on something, I really believe what I enjoy about coaching this level, college, is it's the last step before adulthood, right? It's the last time that they really can make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Because when they leave college, it's like adulting, it's full on adulthood, and have fun, because there's nobody giving you a COA or making sure that you're going to be here on time, buying your flights, all of these things. So I like to give them that space to learn from their mistakes and help them learn through them as well.
I'm also going to go out on a limb, and from my perspective, I'm going to highlight to you, I think that also takes a lot of strength on your part, because when you talk culture, that's not a small game to talk about. Culture is a big deal, and I'm a very firm believer of it's culture plus strategy equals outcomes, and it is absolutely culture first.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter how good your players are or how good your work environment is in the real world. If your culture sucks, it doesn't matter how good your strategy is.
Absolutely. And, you know, we didn't, in terms of wins and losses, I say this a lot, it didn't show up, our success didn't show up the way that I wanted it to, right? We only won 7 games. And looking back on the year, I kept a journal all year, a handwritten journal, and I didn't realize, honestly, how much I wrote down, but it's helped me so much as I'm preparing for year 2. But I would say there's probably 4 to 5 games we probably could have won had I not been so passionate about the culture that I'm building. That, you know, some of our better players I didn't start, or I benched the whole 4th quarter one time. So it just making different decisions like that, I think it kind of sent the message to the team. And I tell them all the time, no one's bigger than the culture, me included. And we all represent something that's bigger than us. And it's a tremendous opportunity. You mentioned the John Gordon talk, whether it's just, you know, collecting those pennies, not wasting opportunities, and playing at this level. I don't care if you're here at DU or if you're at UConn, South Carolina, it's an opportunity, and it's a tremendous responsibility to play at a Division I level. And I don't take that lightly, and our players know that.
And I think that's a great approach. I love how you're attacking the day, yet I'm going to give you enough room to make a mistake, and courageous and a lot of strength from your part.
It took some time, I would say.
Yeah.
If I would have gotten this job like maybe 4 years ago, I can't say I would have had the confidence that I have now to lead that way. I think you learn so much as an assistant, being the middleman between the team and the head coach and trying to balance that out. That I tell our players, you know, life has so much just adversity and obstacle that I don't want basketball to give you anxiety. So if basketball is giving you anxiety, you let me know, because this should be fun. It should be fun, and we should be able to play free and play fast is what I say. Then I think the other part that it really has helped, and we talk, I'm very transparent with the team. I probably tell them too much, honestly, but it's just like, I don't want them guessing. Like, you're love it or hate it, you're going to know where you stand with me. You know, I'm not a huge yeller, but I'm just a very matter of fact type coach. But I believe in treating everybody fair, not equal. You know, what's fair for you know, Jason may not be fair for me, whether it's, you know, if you're a senior and this is your first time being late, and I'm a freshman and this is my 4th time already being late, and I don't call them consequences, I'll say the reaction is going to be different, you know, the reactions. And then we'll talk about it the next day. You know, here's what happened, somebody was late or whatever, and here's going to be the consequence. Everybody knows. So what if happens the next time, and they do a great job of taking care of each other, but talking very openly about, I don't coach you guys all the same. So the reaction to something that is unacceptable is not going to be the same.
I like it, man. I tell you what, man, we need to frame that one. That needs to we need to quote it and frame it and put it up.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And I think, our team is so funny because, again, we are super transparent and honest. Even today, been the 1 year anniversary, and they were like, okay, so tell us how it happened. And so one player who is still on a team, I said, well, I had 2 questions on the Zoom and I just get the job. The first one is my thoughts on mental health. And then the second one was, am I getting rid of anybody? And, she's a player that is flourishing right now. And so to just be able to talk through that moment and see how much we all have grown in a year. But we are super transparent in how I lead. And I'm hoping that it rubs off on them, that they can use that to walk into the best version of themselves.
And Coach, one of the interesting things is, much like you, we have that same philosophy, and we want to build student athletes for life, not just a sport. You've really alluded to that some as we've gone through this initial part here. Walk us through, you've talked about a little bit about decision making and about taking steps forward and having some fail opportunities, mistake opportunities. How are you building your student athletes for life? And talk to us about how you stay connected with them after graduation.
And this is probably my favorite question, just because the pandemic forced us all to kind of get creative and think outside the box. And I think probably the hardest adjustment, I'm such a relationship person. And so to get this position in a time where you couldn't really have relationships or build relationships, I hired a new assistant about a month ago. And so I was telling her, we're fortunate at DU that we have 3 full-size courts. So the first 3 weeks of being the first-time head coach, we had 6 and 6 of cohorts, so they couldn't cross over. And so the coaches coached from the middle court, and then we'd like yell in instructions. So you couldn't go tell someone, no, I want your body this way, I want your body that way. So, that definitely just kind of forced us to get creative. But also in that, DU is a smaller athletic department. So there's tough decisions in terms of personnel that had to be made and things like that. So we really started just about the life part, is this Life 4.0 series. And to be honest with you, it started a lot around the social justice. I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to keep the conversation going without it being awkward, but wanted to make sure we had space to talk about it. We talked about it initially as a team, and then just like everything else, kind of ebb and flow of the season. So that's how it kind of started there initially. And then I said 4.0, right? The game's 4 quarters, and it's just all of these different areas. And it really expanded. It gave us a chance to have this big umbrella and to bring different things. So it's whether it's social justice, we've talked about mental health, nutrition. We talked about, we'll listen to a podcast and talk about leadership. It's a lot of different ones, but it's usually the summer. It's been 10 o'clock. On Thursdays, tomorrow, we'll talk about just kind of the team's mission statement. And, we said your craft was kind of last year's team, the foundation of what we are. And then this year's team, what you're going to add, what are you going to add? What do you want to be known as? So the Life 4.0 series is something that's super important. The players can bring ideas or podcasts or books that they want to be able to discuss. Always looking for people to kind of join in. We've been able to do some in person. And then I think the part in terms of connecting with them after, I, as you know, love Twitter, but love just the social media because it gives you a chance to stay connected in ways that you couldn't 10 years ago. So I think if you ask most of my former players, they'll tell you I'm pretty much a phone call away. And again, using social media to your advantage. If they post something, whether it's they're traveling or they got a new job, I'm quick to text them or send them a message. And it's all kinds of things, right? And the fun part about that is they really think that you have forgotten about them. They really think that like you moved on. And ever since I started coaching, I said, you're only going to play for 4 or 5 years, right? But it's when you're done is when the fun starts for me. So when you get married, I want a wedding invite. When you have a baby, I want to know, and I want to find out on Twitter when you get a new job. And so that's the fun part for me, because if you think about it, if we just base all of our time with them on the 4 years that they're playing for you, and then you just move on to the next class and the next class. So I'm really trying to use social media thankfully in Zoom, been able to set up Zooms. I'll tell you, last year, education has always been important to me. And again, I talked a little bit about how I grew up. And so my first goal, honestly, was just, I hope I graduate high school. That was kind of my first goal. I didn't realize there was so much more out there. And then to go junior college, get an associate degree, and then if you still ask me to this day, my happiest day was getting my undergrad. Well, when I realized I can get my master's, I was so excited. Graduation at Tulane is just a big, I don't know if you guys are familiar with New Orleans, but it's a big like second line type party. It's a production. So being an assistant there for 10 years, I'm like, I can't wait till I get my degree, and I cannot wait for the second line party. It was already, and we were in a pandemic. It didn't happen. But my spouse set up a whole Zoom of just family and friends. And, to be honest, I think it included about 10 to 15 former players that are close to that got on that acted like they graduated, so it's fun to develop that relationship where they're just as excited about your success. And they see the sacrifices that you've made, whether it's as an assistant or to help them through something. So my players, I think they know that it is, basketball is important, but it's not everything. But when the ball stops bouncing, I want them to know I'm here for a resource, whatever that may be.
Coach, we've spent a good amount of time so far on your approach with the team and with the athletes and the players. And I kind of want to shift gears here and talk about the coaches and your coaching staff a little bit. And both me and Coach Chaddock are high school coaches in our own right, and we've been for a few years, him longer than myself. But speak about your coaching staff, your first coaching staff, I guess, and that process, and what you look for in a coach, and the relationship part of things with the coach, and maybe advice you would give to a young aspiring coach that is maybe looking to reach the collegiate level in coaching.
Well, I think everything, well, let me start with this. Getting a position in COVID, everybody has restrictions. So initially I didn't have a full staff, right? It was obviously myself as the head coach. And then I was able to keep someone who was already here, Coach Penny. And then I was super fortunate that when they offered me the job, they offered me the opportunity to hire my spouse. So we joke, we have a wife team here at DU, which makes it funny because it's like good cop, bad cop, and then we can't decide who's who. Really just depends. He coaches offense, I coach defense, so it just depends. And I have to hear how good our offense was last year and how terrible our defense was. So that's like daily. But and then hiring the other position, initially this past season, I had a coach who was from Colorado, who'd spent some time here at DU, and we'd known each other for quite some time. And then you get there and, there's hard decisions. And I think knowing someone and working with people are two different things. So I don't want to act like everything was just all like roses and, really, I like ice cream, so roses and ice cream. It wasn't. And so, sometimes it's just not a fit. So going through that the year and learning a lot through that, having a coach that it wasn't a good fit for, what either one of us kind of wanted. And so it gave me a chance to take my time the second time around. I knew, again, not having a full staff, I was already looking for another coach, and then was going to replace that assistant. So needing two people. And the second time around, I think I just took my time. I think we get so caught up in thinking that I need a person that can coach this position, right? I need somebody that can coach the guards. I need somebody that can coach the bigs. No, I think ultimately you need somebody that you feel like you can, that you can work with, that they can learn, that's passionate about what you're passionate about. Not that they have to be a reflection of you, but passionate about mentoring student athletes, growing them as people, growing them as players. And then I think everything else will fall into place. So now, if you ask me with my staff, it really was important to find someone. And the other thing is to be who wants to be where you are. I think leading up, as I'm looking at my portfolios, it's important. It was always like, oh, I have my short list of people I want to hire, my short list. No, forget your short list, because your short list is not going to matter. Get whatever job it is, and then who's going to be right for where you are. It's like I have a short list, but can you afford your short list? Has your short list of people, have they evolved from when you first met them and spent time with them? I think being able to ask yourself those hard questions, and then I will hiring somebody that you feel like you don't have to go out all the time, but at least you can, be comfortable going to, grab a bite to eat or grab coffee with outside the office, that it's not work, 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 and having that balance. So I know this is probably like a vague answer and it's almost cliche in a sense, but hiring people that you feel like you can vibe with in a lot of different areas, because you spend too much time together. And at this level, we're all sacrificing a lot. We're sacrificing time with our families, time, just vacation time, because you're so limited. So hiring people that you feel like want to learn and grow, and then knowing enough about yourself of what you need to be able to put them in situations to be successful. When I hired these two positions, my staff responsibilities were blank. And then I kind of asked them, this is kind of what I'm thinking. What's your ultimate goal? If you want to be a head coach, then I want to tailor that responsibility to make sure that you're going to be prepared for that. So I think asking that, but really also making sure that they want to be at the university I'm working at. I think that's important because everybody has their different challenges at each university. And this second time around, it gave me a chance to just be upfront and honest about the great things, and then the things that might be perceived as a struggle to others, and take my time. So say all that to say, good people.
No, you're so right. And I'm a part of building a business here. We're 1 year into this business, and so we have a short list of people or a small group of people working. And the way I think about it is, as we're looking for people to grow, is I'll find the people, the character first, and I can teach them the skill. Obviously you need some sort of skill, you need some sort of ability to do the said job, but I'm looking for the character and the people first. And that, if they want to be where I'm at, and if they want to move up, I can teach them that. But the first things first, let's find the people, the right people.
Absolutely. And I saw this on Twitter once. One said, normalize leaving a job and it's just not being a good fit, and you can still have a relationship and be friends. I think too many times there always has to be a reason. There's like, oh, this person left because of that. No, like, normalize is just, I respect you enough, and the respect is mutual, that it's not a good fit, but hey, you still want to go get coffee. And I think in coaching, we get to, well, there has to be a reason. No, it's just, how I want to lead may not be. I literally have a shirt that says I'm not for everyone. And that's okay. It's funny, I have the shirt, but I haven't.
I need to borrow that.
Yeah, I was so excited to get it. And then I'm like, because I really am just naturally a positive person and pretty much like in a good mood. But I'm like, if I wear it outside my house, somebody's gonna like, what do you mean I'm not for everyone? So I hadn't worn it, but it's more of a phrase of just, your leadership style or your vision. Again, it may not be for everyone, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean like the relationship or life has to end because it didn't work out. It wasn't a fit. Okay, it wasn't a fit. Good luck. And we can, come to our games next year and let's still grab coffee.
Coach Woods, I'm curious to know what, and I ask this because I'm putting myself into your shoes for a minute and trying to think what it would be like for me to run a business with my wife or do something like that. And I'm thinking about, because sometimes hey, and my wife listens to this podcast, so I hope I don't get grounded. So don't throw me out to the wolves here. You have a home life together, you have a coaching life together. How do you find the balance with that? Because there are some serious demands on coaching, period, not to mention coaching at the collegiate level. And then trying to find that balance to be at home, because not every day on the court is a good day.
It is not.
How do you balance it all?
We've been together a little over 13 years, and we've been married almost 10. And so ironically, our entire marriage, we've always worked together. So when we were at Tulane, she was the ops and I was an assistant. So we've had a lot of work. So us getting to this point, I honestly think it's more uncomfortable. I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but more for everyone else, just because we've done it the whole time. I think now our strategy kind of is sometimes we need to drive separate. Like today we had to drive separate, because it's like, I got this and have something else after that. So some days you might have to drive separate. And we joke about the tree. Outside, I was like, okay, say what you need to say about basketball when we get in the house. Either, now it's a little tricky since obviously I'm the head coach and responsibility is different, but we'll try to give like, okay, you got the first hour and then, okay, this hour, no basketball. I'm definitely a basketball junkie. I can watch it all day. And, last night watching the Bucks and the Suns. She was like,
I was going to
"We're gonna
ask
watch
you.
the whole game." And I was like, yes, we're gonna watch the whole game. So, so for us, it's just almost like second nature. We both met in basketball. We're both passionate about mentoring and coaching at this level. So it's part of our personalities. I know it's strange, but it's really something that we both grew up loving, and just honestly have the opportunity to do it together, which makes it, easier, obviously, when you're trying to, whether gone on a long road trip, obviously we're going to be gone together because we're both coaching a team, but it's fun. It's fun. And I think for our players, they get a kick out of it, because I'll have to, people think I am passionate, but she is not the patient one. I'm patient. I'm patient. I just made the word patient. I'm passionate and patient. She is passionate and impatient. So sometimes when I have to check her in practice, the players will be like, ooh, what's going to happen? Like, just, but no, we have fun together. It's fun. And it's, when it's time to work, it's time to work. And again, our offense was phenomenal last year and our defense is terrible. So if I have to hear that from her one more time, I'll make other changes. Yeah.
So then I must be more like her in the sense where I'm the impatient one in this relationship. My wife is definitely the patient one, not me.
Yeah, I don't know. I developed this patience when the pandemic started, and it just I surprised myself, because I thought, honestly, when I'm becoming a head coach, I'm going to be like, boom, boom, boom. And then I get it and I'm like, I'm just patient. And, I'll talk through something, I'll sleep on it. That probably became my favorite phrase. If I could sleep on it, I want to sleep on it and think about it. And so, yeah, I'm pretty much an even keeled here this way. I don't really get too high or too low. It takes a lot to get me upset. We're sustained. I don't hold grudges. I will get, it's like, okay, so what do I need to say? And then again, let's go get coffee.
Yeah.
I love it. That's the way to be. Let's dive in deeper now. Let's hit to the greatest adversity that you have faced, and how did you overcome it?
This one was, so first I'm thinking, okay, do I say in basketball? Do I say in life? I feel like if I were to ever write a book, adversity would have to be somewhere in the title, because that's just how my whole life has been. And I don't know, honestly, to pick one, but I would tell you to grow up. Part of the reason I can be so positive now is to grow up in an environment that I did, basically around a lot of drugs, things like that. We didn't necessarily have a lot growing up. So I think the adversity then was just figuring out how I was going to survive in terms of the environment that I was born into. I think now that I'm an adult, my mom did the best that she knew how, but to think about, okay, if I lived with this family for 3 years in high school, then I lived with a different family my senior year in high school, then to try to figure out those aspects as a kid or as a teenager. So I think the adversity, if you made me pick one, probably just being raised by a mom who didn't have the resources necessary to raise 3 kids, and to be able to still make it here in spite of that, right? In spite of growing up on welfare, Section 8, sometimes being either foodless, which I have this really crazy thing about food. I'm like, I am not going to bed hungry because I did it too many times. So I think adversity for me then was just trying to figure out how I could survive and graduate high school and what that meant for my life after that. It is one that, again, it's not like embarrassing to talk about, but I tell you a quick story. We were often the family that got adopted at Christmas, right? Either by the Salvation Army or something else locally. Often that's where our food and clothes came from. So it was really cool to get this position here and to be on the other end of that. So last year, the team adopted 2 families at Christmas, and then we donated to the rescue mission here in Denver for Thanksgiving. And that's something that will definitely be a staple for me and this program as long as I'm here at DU. Is I knew how much those holidays meant to me, whether it was just funny Barbie dolls that I couldn't stand, but I always appreciated having something to open. So I think just growing up, my life story is not unique, but it's definitely a testimony. And I know everyone has their hardships, and that's just like a snippet of it. But without those hardships, I'm not sitting here today. So I'm grateful that God trusted me enough with the responsibility enough to be resilient enough to get where he needed me to get to.
That's incredible. I was getting goosebumps listening to that. That's so cool how it comes full circle. You know, now you're with a program that helps out the same thing that you were part of when you were a kid, and that's just incredible. And now, I mean, being a head coach with the way you grew up, I mean, that's just incredible. You must be proud. Your family must be proud. It's pretty cool to be in that position now. And obviously, and I'm a firm believer, I used to think when I was a kid and naive and dumb that, you know, I could do everything by myself, but we all have people in our lives to get us to where we need to go, and none of us could do it alone. And that's definitely what I tell my kids is, you know, I know everything, don't worry about it, coach. And I'm like, I know you know, just
Yes.
trust me, don't worry.
Yes.
And I want to ask you, as kind of our final question here is, and it's probably more than one, but it's your kind of moment to shout out a little bit, is who has been the most impactful mentor or leader in your life to this point?
Oh, geez. Yeah, you're definitely right. It's more than one. And, you know, I honestly would probably start, and I'm just going to name one because it's just going to be easier. Because if I start naming more than one, then people will be like, well, you left this person out. So I would just say the caveat, right? It took a village. So again, the quick shout out to Topeka, Kansas, specifically the East Side, and USD 501, because that was the school district I would go to school in. But I would say my 8th grade basketball coach, she was probably the first one. Coach Johansson, Coach J, as I call her. She was phenomenal. She was the first one that told me that I had talent in basketball. I didn't start playing until 7th grade. But she coached the 8th grade team, but she's looking down, looking at me. And then I didn't know that there was different leagues to play in. She paid for me to play in whatever leagues. And then once I got in high school, she actually gave me my first kind of after school job. She also worked at a sports store when she wasn't teaching. And she told me, as long as I stayed in high school and you keep your grades up, I'll buy your athletic shoes. And I said, okay, I didn't know that there's like a volleyball shoe, a basketball shoe, all these different type of shoes you had for sports. And so this is a person, I played volleyball, basketball, softball, and ran track. And she's like, keep your grades up. And so I'd bring her my report card. It'd have to be above a 3.0. And then she said, okay, go pick out what you want. And, you know, that gesture just initially of just telling me how much she believed in me, and then to support me all the way through up until even I got this job. You know, she's like, I'm not super technology savvy, but basically mailed me a check to make sure I can donate it to the program in her name. And so she was one that was there from the beginning and continues to be there for me to this day, you know, 25 plus years later. But I think she was the one to really get me focused in the sense of, you have potential and I'm not going to let you waste it. And here's a couple of parameters. And she was a godsend then. And then obviously once I got into high school, colleges, a lot of other hosts of coaches and people I can name. But she was probably the first one that really believed in me as a person who was talented in other things, not just a basketball player.
Well, I hope we can get Coach J to listen to this, because I'm sure that'd mean a lot.
I might have to send it to her. We did on the call and check in with her.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. Coach Woods, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I mean, that was just an incredible conversation. I think I could speak on behalf of both Coach Chaddock and I. A true blessing and honor to have you on, and your message, your values, they really speak loudly. And I think the culture, the hashtag your craft, I think that's awesome. We actually have a acronym. It's hashtag drive, and it's determination, rigor, inspiration, victory, and excellence. And all those kind of drive you to become the best version of yourself you can be. So that's kind of something we created. So love hearing about that. But thank you again so much. We hope to have you on again sometime, and good luck in your upcoming season. We'll definitely be rooting you on and following you.
Absolutely. I enjoyed myself. Hope you guys had a good time. Definitely hope to be back. So you guys just either shoot me an email. I would say though, real quick, I didn't talk about, you talked about hashtag your craft. So the other one that I will sign a lot of my tweets with is hashtag MGC. It's make good choices, which is our only team role. is that make good choices. Cause I feel like it encompasses all of these things, right? I'm not in the profession to police everything about them. So make good choices. And it, again, we talked earlier about treating somebody fair and equal. So those are the two hashtags that I use. And then we'll see what the team comes up with for the 21-22 team and what they want to be known as.
That's awesome.
That's real cool. Well, thank
I
you
like
again,
that.
coach. And yeah, again, good luck and yeah, keep inspiring those players of yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Coach.